What's up, Infected? It's Wolf of the Quarantine. Today I'm going to be taking a look at a game that was sent to me to review that I'm definitely going to mispronounce, and it is Sekigahara. Now, Sekigahara is a game that takes place in the 1600s when the Tokugawa clan of Japan was trying to unify the entirety of Japan under Tokugawa. I'm not a history buff. I don't know a whole lot of the history from that, but if I'm not mistaken, it's the Ishida clan that was opposing them, and it was Tokugawa versus Ishida, and it was a very bloody battle trying to unify the entirety of Japan under one ruler. So to play Sekigahara is actually fairly simple. So this is a GMT game. So if you're familiar with GMT, one of their most notable games is Twilight Struggle. Really, really good game. Pretty heavy. Reading through the rulebook is like reading a field manual in the military. It's super boring, super dry, but it doesn't leave anything up to question. Everything is covered in their rulebook. So they do a fantastic job writing their rulebooks. They're just not very fun to read. This game's no different. So to play this game, like I said, it is very, very simple. You have a couple symbols all over the board. To start off, you're going to place these starting units. Now, your units are these wooden blocks, and they face you. So Tokugawa is black, the Ishida clan is like yellow or gold or something, and that faces them. So you don't know what your units are. You know there's, say, 4 units, because there's 4 blocks stacked there, but you don't know what they are. And you're going to be moving your pieces around by discarding cards. Now, this game uses, similar to Twilight Struggle, uses a card system. You're going to have a hand of cards, you're going to draw cards, and then extra cards based on the number of castles that you control at the beginning of your turn, and it's a 7-week campaign to unify Japan. And you're going to, you could discard no cards and be able to still move one, or one unit just around. You can discard, no cards to just discard all your cards and draw 5 more. You can also, you can discard 1 card to move like 3, you can discard 2 to move all of your units. And if you move all your units, you can also recruit, and if you move 3, or if you only move 1, you can substitute that for a recruit. And when you recruit, you're basically just going to pull some people at the beginning of every turn. You're going to put people into the corner of the board. It's again facing you, so your opponent doesn't know what it is. And when you recruit, it's really cool. You can recruit anybody out of that, and you don't have to show nothing. Or I can grab all of one symbol, because all the cubes have little symbols on them. So I can grab 5 cubes, and they all have the same symbol, and show them to my opponent and go, haha, and then he gets to see me drop this just killing machine in a city, maybe next to one of his or something like that. But then that's really it. That's most of what you're going to be doing on your turn until 2 units clash. Now, when 2 units clash, this is where the meat and potatoes of this game comes from, because you're going to use those same cards that you were discarding to see who goes first and to move units and to everything. You're now going to be using those to attack. Well, not really attack. Well, technically it's attack. You're generating power with your armies. So, I on my turn, maybe I have 3 flowers, and I don't know what they're called. They're the little temple-looking things. So maybe I have those in my stack there, but none of them are fielded for battle. So on my turn, I play a card. I play that card, you take a symbol that matches that card, and you place it face up on the board so your opponent can now see it. Now, for every symbol of that type that's located, that's visible, you're going to gain a point. Then your opponent does the same thing. Whoever's lowest on that track gets to play next. So your opponent does the same thing. They drop 1 card, show somebody, goes back to you. Then when it goes back to you, let's say I place another one of the same symbol. Say it's a flower, and that's what the first one was. So I play another flower. So I flip 2 flowers face up. So I had 2 to begin with, now I have 2. So those of you who are great at math, you actually have 6. And I'll explain why. Because you had the 2 from the original, then you get 2 from the one you just played. But then you get 1 more for each one that was already present. So in this case, you actually are going to get a total of 4 for just this placement of placing 2, if that makes any sense. I know it's a little confusing. So you place 1, you get 2. You know, you place one that has 2 flowers on it, you get those 2 points. You place another one that has 2 more flowers, but then you get 1 point for each one of those flowers that were already there. So this can ramp up super fast, because if you place another one, say I place another one that only has 1 flower on it. So I place that one, I get that 1 point. But then I get 4 additional points for the 4 flowers that were already out there. So this compounds really fast. And you're basically doing that back and forth, trying to compete with the power that's out there. But then you have special cards that you can drop down that activate like muskets and horses that give you just special bonuses. And all the while, you're basically trying to capture, as Tokigawa, you're trying to either kill the Ishida commander, which is somewhere on the board, or you're trying to capture 2 regions on the board, or kill two regions on the board, or take the capital for Ishida. That if you complete one of those 3, you win as Tokigawa. As Ishida, if you kill Tokigawa, you win. And again, they're hidden somewhere out there. Now, Ishida, to balance all this out, Ishida starts with just a stupid amount of troops that are garrisoned in their capital. I want to say it's Edo. They just get a stupid amount of troops in there. So cracking that nut is going to be pretty difficult. But that's all. That's how the game is played. And I know that this whole explanation might sound a little complicated, but it's really not. When I cracked this open, I was expecting a super, super heavy Twilight Struggle style game. I love Twilight Struggle. It is a fantastic game, but it is a fairly complicated game, especially when trying to teach new players. This one is much simpler to learn than Twilight Struggle. On their little back here, they show this as a complexity of out of 9, their complexity of 2. If I'm not mistaken, Twilight Struggle's a 4, and I'd say that's about accurate. Twilight Struggle's not super complicated, but it's got a lot of nuanced things that you can do. You know, how does this type of action work? How does this type of action work? What if I use this card for this? There's nothing like that here. It's literally, there's like 4 phases. It's literally play a card to be able to move some things, and then play a card matching a symbol of a unit you have to field it, which is also really cool because you're always going to draw these cards back up at the end of that battle, and loser loses people, and for every 7 power that you have, they lose people as well. So even though you won, you can still lose, a couple people, which could hurt later on. But then you're going to get all those cards back, so there's no reason to not use those cards unless you maybe need them for another battle. And that's where the magic of this comes from, because, yeah, you may have this massive, just juggernaut army just like marching, causing earthquakes as they march, but you can't seem to draw the cards you need to field most of those units. Maybe you draw 1 or 2 cards that can field units out of there, but that's it. Your opponent doesn't know that, though. So you can use that to your advantage, because now you slide that next to one of their cities. They get real nervous real fast. But the biggest problem with the game, in my opinion, is those cubes, honestly. While that's a really, really cool system, and I really like that with the sliding the cubes and only I can see the one side, it could get really cluttered on the board, especially if you have really big units moving around, because the bigger unit, you get movement penalties and stuff like that, and you get movement bonuses if you're moving along certain roads, and there's a big way of doing that. But you can have really a lot of units in one area, and it's really difficult sometimes to have because the board isn't super big, and it can get real cluttered really fast, and that's really my biggest problem with the game. The other one is the card play. Sometimes you cannot draw the cards that you need, and it's infuriating. But in the few times we've gotten to play this, it's happening to both sides, and both sides are stressing out. Both sides are going to get totally screwed off those cards, but you can plan accordingly. Mix your units up a little bit. You may not be able to hit as hard, but you're going to be able to hit more consistently. Or you can just specialize, this army is these units, this army is this symbol, to be able to hit hard but not as consistent. So you wind up having this juggling act of, okay, how are you going to do this? A third problem that we did find with the game is it is very much a rich get richer kind of game, but not massively. It's a very small bit. And what I mean by that is the first game, for example, that we played, I was Tokigawa, and I blew up, I fortified one of my fronts and wiped over the western edge of the map, or the eastern edge of the map, and took a whole bunch of castles. So that way the next round, I would be able to draw more cards, or more units out of my bag for reinforcements. So because of that, I was able to just, I could field more units because I had more things where I could just show them like, hey, here's 6 blocks, sucks to suck, and drop them in one of my cities. When my opponent, where I took a bunch of their castles, they weren't able to do that as effectively. So once you start losing, it's not guaranteed game over, but it is going to be an uphill battle at that point, which I guess is thematic. But just know that going in, it's once you start getting your shit pushed in, it's really hard to fight back. But you can, because he did I wound up winning, but only just. So again, use that information with how you will. But no, this game is fantastic. It is actually very simple. It is surprisingly simple for how complicated the game actually looks. The rulebook is a bore to read, but trust me, GMT does great jobs with their rulebooks. They may be a snooze to read, but they cover pretty much anything you're ever going to have an issue with in the game. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I definitely recommend Sekigahara, which I'm pretty confident I'm mispronouncing. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time in the quarantine.